Welcome to Swords and Hammers. Truth comes clothed in tales, and the soul remembers what the mind alone forgets. The world is loud, but for the next few minutes, it can wait. Take a moment. Settle yourself. Listen well. Come, let us begin. The house of mercy that showed no mercy. I once knew a man who spent 43 years waiting for his ship to come in. Every morning, he'd shuffle down to the docks, peer through the fog, and swear that today, surely today, would be the day. The other dock workers would shake their heads and mutter that old Jenkins had no ship coming, never had a ship, wouldn't know what to do with a ship if one tied up right in front of him. But there he sat, year after year, growing greyer and more bent, clutching a lottery ticket from a drawing that had ended decades ago. I tell you about Jenkins because he was the luckiest man alive compared to the fellow I'm about to describe. A man who spent 38 years, not by the docks, but by a pool in Jerusalem, waiting for something even less likely than a phantom ship. Picture, if you will, the sheep gate of Jerusalem. Not the prettiest part of town, mind you. This was where they brought the sacrificial animals, so the air was thick with the smell of frightened beasts and their various contributions to the atmosphere. Right next to this livestock highway sat a pool called Bethesda, which someone with a sense of irony had named House of Mercy. Now calling this place a house of mercy was like calling a desert a swimming hole. Under 5 stone porches, 5 like the 5 books of Moses that could diagnose your problems but couldn't cure a hangnail, lay what looked like the aftermath of a particularly unsuccessful battle. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed, all packed together like damaged goods in a warehouse nobody wanted to inventory. The peculiar thing about this establishment was the local superstition. Folks believed that every so often, nobody knew when exactly, an angel would come down and stir the water. The first one in after the stirring would be healed of whatever ailed them. Just the first one, mind you. The angel apparently worked on commission and could only afford 1 miracle per stirring. Think about that system for a moment. Here you had a crowd of people who couldn't walk, couldn't see, couldn't move, all competing in a race to be first into a pool. It was like holding a foot race for folks with no feet, a beauty contest, for the blind judging themselves. The whole arrangement had been designed by someone with either no understanding of mercy or a particularly dark sense of humor. The sickest couldn't possibly win. The healthiest of the sick? Now, there was a title to aspire to. They might manage it. But the truly desperate? They just lay there, year after year, watching others splash their way to healing while they couldn't even crawl to the edge. Among this cheerful assembly was a man who'd been coming to this watering hole of false hope for 38 years, nearly 4 decades. In that time, kingdoms had risen and fallen, children had been born and grown old, and still he lay there on his mat like a permanent fixture, as much a part of the scenery as the pillars themselves. You might wonder what keeps a man waiting that long. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's the terrible comfort of familiar misery. After 38 long years, that mat wasn't just where he lay. It was who he was. He was the man by the pool, and without that identity, what would he be? Just another fellow expected to work for his bread, carry his own weight, make something of himself. The pool gave him an excuse for everything he'd never done, never tried, never become. Every morning he'd wake up and drag himself to his spot. His spot, after 38 years, it was practically deeded to him. And he'd watch that water. And every time it stirred, He'd make a show of trying to reach it, knowing full well he'd never make it, and then he'd sink back with a sigh that said, "Well, I tried. Not my fault, someone else got there first." Then one day, during one of those religious festivals when the city was packed with pilgrims trying to look holy, a stranger walked through those 5 porches. He didn't have the shuffle of the sick or the cautious step of the visiting relative. He walked like someone who knew exactly where he was going, which was unusual in a place where nobody was going anywhere. This stranger stopped right in front of our professional invalid and asked him the most absurd question anyone had ever asked: "Do you want to get well?" Now you'd think, after 38 years, the answer would shoot out like water from a burst dam. But our friend didn't say yes. Instead, he launched into an explanation that he'd probably recited 10,000 times. "Sir, I have nobody to help me into the pool when the water stirs. While I'm trying to get there, somebody else always beats me to it." Listen to that answer carefully. He wasn't asked why he wasn't healed. He was asked if he wanted to be. But he couldn't even answer that simple question. He was so invested in his excuse, so married to his misery, that when someone asked if he wanted out, all he could do was explain why he was still in. It's like asking a man in prison if he wants to be free, and he responds by telling you how thick the walls are. The question wasn't about the walls, it was about his will. The stranger, and by now you've probably figured out this was Jesus, walking around Jerusalem like he owned the place, which technically he did, didn't argue with the man's excuse, didn't offer to help him into the pool, didn't give him a pep talk about trying harder. Instead, he cut through 38 years of excuses with 3 words: get up, walk. Not try to get up, not believe you can get up, not visualize yourself getting up, just get up. And here's where the story takes a turn that would make a skeptic's head spin. The man, who hadn't taken a step in 38 years, who had more excuses than a politician has promises, heard those words and stood up. His legs, which hadn't supported him since some of us were in short pants, suddenly remembered their job. Muscles that had withered like grapes into raisins suddenly swelled with strength. Bones that should have been brittle as old parchment held firm. But the real miracle wasn't in his legs. It was in his will. For one crucial moment, he stopped explaining why he couldn't and simply did what he was told. He picked up that mat, that security blanket of 38 years, rolled it up, and walked off with it under his arm like a man carrying his own coffin out of the graveyard. Now you'd think the religious folks would have thrown a party. Man walks for the first time in 38 years, hallelujah, and pass the wine. But no, the first thing they said to him was, "Hey, you can't carry that mat. It's the Sabbath." Here's a man carrying proof of the greatest miracle they'd seen in their lifetimes, and they're upset about a technicality. It's like watching someone rise from the dead and complaining that they didn't fill out the proper resurrection paperwork. These were the same folks who would walk past that pool every Sabbath, see hundreds of suffering people, and feel perfectly righteous doing nothing about it. But let one of them get healed and carry his mat. Now that was a crisis worth addressing. The healed man, bless his simple heart, had the perfect answer. The man who healed me told me to carry it. Think about the logic there. If someone has the power to cure 38 years of paralysis, maybe, just maybe, he has the authority to tell you what to do with your mat. It's like questioning the authority of someone who just pulled you from a burning building because they told you to leave your luggage behind. Later, Jesus found the man in the temple. And isn't that interesting? The first place the man went after being healed wasn't home, wasn't to show off to the folks who'd written him off, but to the temple. Even a professional excuse maker knows where credit is due when a real miracle happens. And Jesus gave him a warning that should make every comfortable sinner squirm. See, you are well now. Stop sinning, or something worse might happen to you. Something worse than 38 years of paralysis? What could that be? Well, I'll tell you what's worse. It's getting your body healed while your soul stays sick. It's walking around on 2 good legs, straight into hell. It's receiving mercy and using your newfound strength to spit in the face of the one who showed it to you. You see, that pool was the perfect picture of human religion. Intermittent hope. Maybe the angel comes today, maybe next year. Competitive salvation. Only one winner per miracle. Survival of the fittest among the unfit. The least sick get the cure, while the most sick get nothing. That's every human system for saving ourselves. That's every program of self-improvement, every ladder of morality we try to climb with broken rungs, every pool we sit beside, waiting for magic water, while the real water of life stands right in front of us, asking if we actually want to be well. And that's the question for you, sitting there listening to this tale. You've got your own mat, your own 38 years of whatever it is that's paralyzed you. Maybe it's not your legs. Maybe it's your heart, frozen in bitterness. Maybe it's your conscience, deadened by compromise. Maybe it's your hope, withered by disappointment. You've got your excuses all lined up, polished smooth by years of repetition. If only someone would help me. If only my circumstances were different. If only the water would stir when I'm ready. But the Lord of Glory stands before you, not asking about your excuses, not interested in your carefully maintained victim status, not impressed by how long you've been lying there. He asks you one simple question. Do you want to be well? And if you do, if you really do, not just in theory, but in the deepest part of your excuse-making, comfort-seeking, mat-clutching soul, then hear his word. Get up. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when the water stirs. Now, pick up your mat, that thing that's defined you, that excuse that's chained you, and walk. Walk away from the pool of competitive religion. Walk away from the crowd of the perpetually waiting. Walk into a life where mercy doesn't come by lottery, but by the word of the one who made legs in the first place. But remember the warning. This isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. The one who has power to heal your paralysis has authority over your life. You can't take his healing and ignore his lordship. You can't get up from your mat and walk back into the very sins that put you there. The religious folks will criticize you. They always do when grace shows up and ruins their tidy systems. They'll say you're carrying your mat wrong, walking too freely, enjoying your healing too much. Let them talk. The one who healed you has more authority than all their traditions combined. 38 long years that man waited for nothing. 38 agonizing years watching water that couldn't save him, believing in a system designed to fail him, perfecting excuses that imprisoned him. Don't be that man. Or rather, be that man at the moment he heard the word and obeyed. Be the man who stopped explaining why he couldn't and discovered that he could. Be the man who picked up his past and walked into his future. The pool is still there, you know. Archaeologists found it. 5 porches, just like John said. But the water doesn't stir anymore, and the desperate don't gather there. Because once the real healer showed up, the counterfeit lost its appeal. The question echoes still, down through the centuries, as fresh as morning and as urgent as your next breath. Do you want to be well? The water won't save you. The excuses won't serve you. The mat won't hold you. But the word of Christ, that word creates what it commands. That word speaks life into death, strength into paralysis, hope into despair. Get up, pick up your mat, walk, and sin no more, lest something worse than 38 years of paralysis come upon you, the terrible fate of receiving mercy and wasting it, of being healed only to stay sick, of getting up from your mat only to lie down in a grave of your own digging. The house of mercy showed no mercy until mercy himself walked through its porches. And he's walking still, through the porches of your life, past the pools of your false hopes, straight to the mat, where you've been lying. The question remains. The power waits. The command stands ready. Do you want to be well? Selah.